Lena sat on the edge of her bed, her phone glowing in her hands. The room was dark except for the soft blue light from the screen. She scrolled through old messages again, even though she'd already read them 100 times. Each word felt heavier now. Every good night and miss you sounded like a lie. She whispered under her breath, "You said you'd never leave." The chat was full of short texts, late-night calls and little jokes that once made her smile. But now the name at the top of the screen, Ethan, made her chest tighten. It had been 3 weeks since he last replied. 3 weeks since he'd suddenly gone silent after she told him she was pregnant. At first, she thought something must have happened to him. Maybe he lost his phone, or maybe he needed time to think. She told herself that people sometimes panic when big news hits. She gave him space. She waited. But when she saw him posting photos on social media, laughing, traveling, looking like life was perfect, she felt her stomach drop. She typed again, "Please, just text me." "We need to talk," then deleted it, then typed again, then deleted it again. It had become a nightly habit, writing messages she never sent, because no matter what she said, it always came out sounding desperate, and she hated that. Lena worked at a small grocery store during the day. The people there knew her as quiet but kind, always willing to take an extra shift. Lately, though, she'd been showing up late, looking tired, her eyes red. Her manager pulled her aside one morning and asked if she was okay. "I'm fine," she said quickly, forcing a smile. She wasn't fine. She was scared, not just of being alone, but of how easily people could change. When she first met Ethan, he'd been warm and confident. He wasn't the kind of man who had to chase attention. It came to him naturally. He worked at a construction company and had a calm way of talking that made people listen. He told her she was different, that she made him feel grounded, safe. For months, everything felt real. Then came the pregnancy test. 2 lines. She stared at it for a long time, her hands shaking. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When she told Ethan, he didn't say much at first. Just sat there, eyes wide, lips pressed together. Then he said he needed time to think. That was the last real conversation they had. At first, Lena didn't tell anyone else. She wanted to give him the chance to step up, to show he cared. But as the days passed, silence turned into distance and distance turned into whispers. Someone from town saw him at a cafe with another woman. Another person mentioned he'd been telling people she was making things up. That was when the word started spreading, that Lena was crazy. One night, she sat at her kitchen table with her friend Maya, one of the few people who hadn't drifted away. "Maybe he's just scared," Maya said softly. "You know how guys can be. They freak out when things get real." Lena shook her head. "It's not just that. He's acting like he doesn't even know me. Like none of it happened. Do you have proof?" Maya asked gently. Lena looked at her phone. Just messages, photos, but he deleted his side of the chats. And now he's saying I edited them. Maya sighed. People will believe what they want to believe. That night, when Lena lay down to sleep, the baby inside her kicked for the first time. She gasped, not from pain, but from the sudden, overwhelming feeling that she wasn't alone anymore. It was small, but it was real. Someone still needed her. In the following weeks, she started documenting everything. Messages, receipts, call logs, even photos of them together. She thought if she just kept everything, one day it would prove she wasn't lying. She didn't want to fight, but she couldn't stand the way people looked at her, with pity or worse, with disbelief. At work, coworkers whispered behind her back. A few times she caught them staring when she walked by. One of them muttered, "That's her, the one who made it all up." Every time she heard things like that, she clenched her fists and walked away. But the words stayed with her, echoing in her head. One evening, she saw Ethan again, by accident. She was leaving the doctor's office, clutching her ultrasound picture, when he stepped out of a nearby car. He looked startled to see her. She froze for a moment, then took a deep breath and walked over. "Ethan," she said quietly. He didn't look at her at first. "Hey, I've been trying to reach you," she said. "We need to talk. I'm not asking for anything, I want you to know this is real." She held out the ultrasound photo. He glanced at it, then back at her. "Lena, I don't know what you want from me. We had fun, but this," he gestured vaguely, "this isn't mine. You know that, right?" Her heart pounded. "You can't say that. You know the truth," he sighed. "Look, I don't want drama. I've moved on. You should too. Then he got into his car and drove away. Lena stood there on the sidewalk, trembling. People were walking past her, going about their day, but to her, everything felt still. She looked down at the photo again. The tiny form inside, proof of life, proof of truth. Tears blurred her vision. When she got home, she finally sent the message she'd been holding back for weeks. You can deny it all you want, but one day, the truth will come out. And when it does, I hope you remember this moment. She didn't expect him to reply, but a few minutes later, the screen lit up. Stop texting me. You're embarrassing yourself. That message hit harder than she expected. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She wanted to scream, to call, to say everything she'd been holding in, but she didn't. She turned off her phone and let the silence fill the room. The next morning, she woke up early and sat by the window. The sun was rising, painting the sky in soft orange light. For the first time in weeks, she didn't cry. She just sat there, one hand on her stomach, whispering, "It's okay. I've got you." As the months went on, her belly grew, and so did the rumors. Some people claimed she was making up the pregnancy to trap Ethan. Others said she was using it for attention. Her parents, tired of the gossip, begged her to move away for a while to avoid more humiliation. But Lena refused. She wasn't the one who should be hiding. Every night before going to sleep, she'd still check her phone. Not because she expected a message anymore, but because part of her couldn't let go. Those old texts were her only reminder that she hadn't imagined it all. One night, unable to sleep, she opened her messages and started scrolling from the very beginning. There it was in the first, "Text me when you get home." The late night, "I miss you." The "I can't stop thinking about you." All those small, simple words that had once felt like promises. Now they felt like echoes from a different life. She put the phone down and whispered, "You lied to me." The baby kicked again as if in response. She smiled weakly through her tears. "But I won't let you down," she said softly. "I promise." That was the night Lena decided she wouldn't chase him anymore. She would keep every piece of evidence safe. She would stay strong, and she would raise her baby with or without anyone's help. People could call her crazy if they wanted, but she knew the truth. And one day she believed the truth would speak louder than any rumor. Still, every once in a while, when the house was quiet and the nights were long, she found herself opening that old chat again, scrolling to that one message that started it all. "Text me when you get home." It used to make her feel cared for. Now it just reminded her how fast care could turn into silence. But even through the pain, she held on to a small, unshakable hope that someday, somehow, the silence would break and she would finally be heard. Lena woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing. For a second, her heart jumped. Maybe it was him. Maybe Ethan had finally come to his senses. But when she looked, it was just another message from her bank reminding her that her account was almost empty. Money had become a constant worry now. She had to cut her work hours after the pregnancy made her sick more often. Some days she could barely stand on her feet through her shift. Still, she pushed herself to keep going. She couldn't afford to stop. At work, people had stopped whispering behind her back. Not because they believed her now, but because they had already made up their minds. They thought they knew the story. To them, she was the girl who lied about being pregnant for attention. The one who tried to trap a man. Lena had learned to live with the stares. She just focused on folding uniforms, stacking boxes, and taking one breath at a time. One afternoon, while she was restocking shelves, her manager called her into the small office. His tone was polite but distant. "Lena," he said, "some of the customers have been talking, and a few of your coworkers are uncomfortable with all the rumors. Maybe it's best if you take some time off, just until things settle down." Her chest tightened. "You mean I'm being let go?" He hesitated. "Just for a little while. You can use the time to rest. You need it." She nodded slowly, even though she wanted to cry. "Right, rest." That night, she sat at her kitchen table staring at a pile of unpaid bills. She had already sold her old guitar and a few pieces of jewelry just to make rent. There wasn't much left to give. She thought about calling Ethan again, but stopped herself. She'd done enough begging. The last message he sent, "Stop texting me," still echoed in her head. Instead, she opened her laptop and searched for free legal advice. She found an online forum where women shared their experiences with paternity disputes. Some of their stories sounded almost exactly like hers. They talked about feeling invisible, about being called liars, about men who denied everything until DNA proved otherwise. Lena read for hours, her eyes blurring from the screen light. She realized she wasn't alone. There were others who had been through the same pain, others who had also been called crazy for telling the truth. She closed the laptop and whispered, "I'm not crazy." The next morning she went to the clinic for her routine checkup. As she waited in the hallway, she noticed two women looking at her and whispering. One of them said something under her breath and laughed. Lena turned her face away and tried to breathe. When the nurse finally called her name, she smiled politely and stood up, pretending not to notice. After the appointment, she stopped by the grocery store to pick up a few essentials. That's when she saw a local newspaper headline at the counter. Businessman Ethan Ward wins Community Award. His smiling face filled the front page. She froze. The same man who refused to answer her messages, who told everyone she was lying, was being praised in public. People adored him. The article called him a role model of integrity. Lena bought the paper, took it home, and read every word. Her stomach turned. The praise, the interviews, the photo of him shaking hands with community leaders. It was like he lived in a completely different world. Later that night, her friend Maya called. "I saw the paper," she said quietly. "Are you okay?" Lena laughed weakly. "He's a hero now. Can you believe that?" Maya sighed. "People only see what they want to see. But the truth doesn't disappear, Lena. It just waits." "I just don't know how much longer I can wait," Lena said softly. There was silence on the line. Then Maya said, "Maybe you should get a lawyer. You have messages, right? Photos. That's something." "I have everything," Lena said. "But no one will listen." "Then we'll make them listen." Those words stuck with her. The next day, Lena called a small law office she found online. The woman on the other end sounded kind, patient, and understanding. She said they could review Lena's situation and maybe help her apply for a paternity test order. It felt like a small light in a long tunnel. But word got around fast. Within a week, people started whispering again. Some said Lena was trying to ruin his life. Others said she was doing it for money. One even told her parents that she was unstable. Her parents, tired and embarrassed by the constant gossip, called her over one evening. Her mother sighed, her voice trembling. "Sweetheart, maybe you should just move away for a while. This isn't healthy. Everyone's talking." Lena looked down. "So I should just disappear?" Her father spoke quietly. "We just want you to have peace." She shook her head slowly. Peace doesn't come from pretending nothing happened. She went home that night with tears in her eyes. For the first time, she realized that even her own family doubted her, not because they didn't love her, but because they were tired of fighting for someone the whole town had already judged. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. Ethan didn't contact her. The lawyer she spoke to said the process could take time and might require a court order. In the meantime, Lena did odd jobs online to make ends meet, writing short pieces, doing surveys, selling homemade candles. It wasn't much, but it kept her going. Then one morning, she woke to dozens of missed calls. Her phone kept buzzing nonstop. When she opened her messages, her hands started shaking. Someone had posted screenshots of her old texts with Ethan, but not all of them. Just the parts that made her look obsessive. Messages like, "Please answer me," and "I just need you to talk to me." The rest, the ones where he said he loved her, where he promised they'd figure it out, were gone. The post went viral in her small-town social group. Comments flooded in. "She's crazy. She made it all up. Poor guy. She's obsessed." Lena sat on her bed, holding her phone, unable to move. Her heart raced as tears rolled down her face. She didn't know who to call, what to do, or how to defend herself. When Maya came over later that day, she found Lena sitting on the floor, surrounded by printed photos and documents. "They twisted everything," Lena whispered. "They made me look insane." Maya knelt beside her and took her hand. "Then we'll show the truth. You have the real messages, right? The full ones?" Lena nodded weakly. "Good," Maya said. "We'll save everything. Don't delete a thing." For the next few hours, they worked together, organizing files, screenshots, and photos. Maya helped her back up everything on a USB drive. It wasn't much, but it felt like a small act of control in a world that was spinning out of reach. That night, when the baby kicked again, Lena placed a hand on her belly and whispered, "I'm not giving up." Days turned into weeks. The online noise started to fade, replaced by new gossip and new stories. People moved on, as they always did. But Lena didn't forget. She used the silence to rebuild her strength. Then one afternoon, she got a letter in the mail. It was from the court. Her request for a paternity hearing had been accepted. She sat at the kitchen table staring at the paper, her hands trembling. For the first time in months, she felt something like hope. When she called Maya to tell her, they both cried. "This is it," Maya said. "This is your chance." Lena knew it wouldn't be easy. Ethan had power, money, and reputation on his side. But she had something stronger: truth. She folded the letter carefully and placed it next to the ultrasound photo she kept on her nightstand. Then she picked up her phone, opened the old chat one last time, and stared at the name that once made her heart race. She whispered, "You can ignore me forever, but the truth won't." Then she turned off her phone and smiled for the first time in a long while. The night before her court date, Lena barely slept. She lay awake listening to the sound of rain tapping against her window, her thoughts spinning. It had been months since Ethan walked out of her life, but tomorrow would be the first time she'd see him again. She wasn't sure what scared her more, facing him or being ignored again. The morning came gray and cold. Lena stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair slowly. Her dress was simple, one of the few nice ones she had left. She touched the small silver pendant around her neck, a gift from her mother years ago, and took a deep breath. When she arrived at the courthouse, the halls were already buzzing with people. Her lawyer, a quiet woman named Carla, met her near the entrance. "Just stay calm," Carla said softly. "We'll present your side clearly. Don't let him get under your skin." Lena nodded. "I'll try." Then she saw him. Ethan stood near the end of the hallway, surrounded by two men in suits. He looked confident, almost casual, as if this was just another meeting for him. When his eyes met hers, something inside her tightened. He didn't look angry. He just looked empty. He gave a small nod, polite, detached, and then turned away. In that moment, Lena realized he had already decided how he wanted this to go. To him, it wasn't about truth. It was about image. Inside the courtroom, everything felt too big. The echo of footsteps, the clicking of pens, the shuffling of papers. When the judge entered, everyone stood. Lena's hands were shaking. Carla presented the documents first: text messages, photos, call logs. Ethan's lawyer tried to object, saying the messages could be fabricated. But Carla was ready. She had backup data records from the phone company confirming the exchanges. When it was Lena's turn to speak, her voice trembled at first. But as she looked around, at the judge, at the people watching, at Ethan avoiding her gaze, something inside her steadied. "I didn't want any of this," she said quietly. "I just wanted honesty. I didn't ask for money or attention. I just wanted him to admit what we both know is true." The courtroom stayed silent. When Ethan finally spoke, his tone was calm, almost rehearsed. "I'm sorry for what she's going through," he said. "But this isn't my child. I was kind to her, and I think she misunderstood that." Lena's heart sank. Even now, with all the evidence, he still wouldn't admit it. The judge listened, patiently, then ordered a DNA test to settle the case once and for all. When the session ended, Lena walked out slowly, her legs weak. Outside, she leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. Maya was waiting for her near the steps. "How did it go?" "They ordered the test," Lena said softly. "That's good," Maya said, smiling gently. "That's progress." But Lena didn't smile. She was too tired. The months of stress, the sleepless nights, the endless doubts, it all felt heavy. Over the next few weeks, she focused on her health and her baby. The test had been scheduled, but the waiting felt endless. Every day she woke up wondering if today would be the day she'd finally get an answer. In the meantime, things didn't get easier. Someone leaked photos of her leaving court. People online said she was attention-seeking. A few even mocked her looks, her clothes, her situation. She stopped checking her social media. It only made the hurt worse. Instead, she poured her time into preparing for her baby. She painted the small corner of her living room light yellow, bought second-hand clothes from a nearby thrift shop, and folded tiny shirts neatly into drawers. Each little outfit made her smile. It reminded her that soon she would hold a new life, one that didn't care about rumors or lies. When the test day finally arrived, she went to the clinic early. The nurse was gentle, explaining each step. They took her baby's sample and Ethan's. He didn't speak to her, not one word. Afterward, as she left the building, she turned back once, half hoping he'd call her name. But he didn't. He just got into his car and drove off. 2 weeks later, the results arrived. Lena held the envelope in her shaking hands for a long time before opening it. Her breath caught as she read the words, 99.99% probability. Her knees went weak. She sat down slowly on the couch, clutching the paper. Tears rolled down her face, and not out of sadness, but from a deep, overwhelming relief. She whispered, "I knew it. I knew I wasn't crazy." Maya came over as soon as she heard the news. They hugged for a long time, both crying and laughing at once. "You did it," Maya said through tears. "You finally proved it." But even in that moment of victory, Lena felt something else, and not triumph, but emptiness. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The truth shouldn't have needed proof. A few days later, Ethan's lawyer called to arrange a private settlement. They offered financial support if Lena agreed not to speak publicly about the case. Carla asked her what she wanted to do. Lena took a long pause. "I don't want his money. I just want him to admit the truth, and not to me, but to himself." Carla nodded. "That's your right." The next day, headlines started appearing. Businessmen ordered to take responsibility after DNA results. The same people who once mocked Lena now praised her for her courage. Her phone flooded with messages, apologies, kind words, even interviews. But Lena ignored them all. She wasn't interested in being famous for her pain. She spent her days at home, holding her newborn son, watching him sleep. His tiny fingers curled around hers, and every time she looked at him, she felt a quiet strength rise inside her. Sometimes, in the stillness of the night, she'd look at her phone, the same one filled with old messages and memories. She thought about deleting everything, but she couldn't. Not yet. Those messages were pieces of a story she had lived through, a story that nearly broke her, but didn't. One evening, as she rocked her baby in her arms, she received a new message from an unknown number. "I'm sorry." She froze. The message came without a name, but she knew exactly who it was. Her heart raced as she stared at the screen. After all this time, that was all he had to say. She typed a reply but stopped midway. Then she erased the words and put the phone down. She looked at her son and smiled softly. "You don't need his sorry," she whispered. "We're okay." Later that night, she finally opened her old chat one last time. The messages that once made her cry now felt like ghosts, reminders of who she used to be and how far she'd come. She scrolled to the very first one again. "Text me when you get home." It no longer hurt. It just felt distant, like a story that belonged to someone else. With a deep breath, she selected the entire chat and pressed delete. The screen went blank, and in that quiet moment, Lena realized she didn't need closure from him. She already had it. In the peaceful rise and fall of her baby's breath, in the strength she found within herself, and in the truth that no one could erase anymore. Outside, the night was calm. The rain had stopped. The world felt new again. She whispered to her sleeping child, "We made it." And for the first time in a long while, she meant it. The weeks after the DNA results felt like a blur. The truth was out, yet life didn't magically fix itself. Lena thought that once everyone knew, things would get easier, that people would finally see her for who she really was, not the rumors they had built around her. But real life didn't work that way. Some people reached out to apologize, but most just stayed silent. They didn't know what to say. The same mouths that once called her crazy now whispered about how brave she was. But Lena didn't want pity or praise. She just wanted peace. Every morning she'd wake up before sunrise. Her baby, Noah, would still be sleeping, his tiny chest rising and falling in the soft light. Watching him like that always made her heart feel full again. He was her reason now. Her reason to move forward, her reason to stay strong, and her reason not to let the pain win. Still, there were moments when she'd sit on the porch, holding a cup of tea, and wonder how things might have been different if Ethan had told the truth from the beginning. Sometimes she imagined him showing up at her door, saying he was sorry, not through a text but in person, looking her in the eyes, taking responsibility. But that day never came. Instead, what did come was a letter from his lawyer. It said Ethan would begin paying child support, as ordered by the court, but that all communication should go through official channels. No personal contact, no messages, no visits. Lena read the letter twice, then set it aside. She didn't need him in their lives anymore. She just wanted to focus on raising her son, but the small town they lived in didn't make that easy. Wherever she went, she felt eyes on her. Some people avoided her. Others acted overly kind, as if making up for their past judgment. It all felt the same and uncomfortable, so she started staying home more often. She found freelance work online, typing documents and doing small jobs while Noah napped. It wasn't much, but it kept her going. One afternoon, while she was feeding Noah, a soft knock came at her door. She opened it to find a woman standing there, someone she recognized vaguely from town. She looked nervous. "Hi," the woman said. "I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to say, I used to believe what people said about you. I was wrong. You didn't deserve that." Lena blinked, surprised. "Thank you," she said softly. The woman nodded quickly, embarrassed. "Anyway, I just wanted to say that. I hope you're doing okay." After she left, Lena stood by the door for a long time, thinking about how strange life was. How people could tear you down one moment and try to rebuild your image the next. But she appreciated the honesty. Small as it was, it reminded her that maybe hearts could change. A few days later, she got an unexpected call. It was from a local journalist who wanted to interview her, not for gossip, but to tell her side of the story. At first, Lena said no. She didn't want her name in the news again. She didn't want to relive everything. But that night, she thought about all the messages she'd read online months ago. Stories from women who'd been silenced or disbelieved. Maybe sharing her story could help someone else. So she called the journalist back and agreed. The interview took place in her small living room. The reporter was kind and respectful, asking gentle questions about her journey. Not just about Ethan, but about how she managed to keep going. Lena spoke honestly. "I didn't fight because I wanted revenge," she said. "I fought because I knew what was true. And when you know the truth, you have to hold on to it, even when nobody believes you." When the article came out, it wasn't dramatic or flashy. It was simple, real, and powerful. People began sharing it online, calling her story inspiring. She received messages from women across the country, some thanking her for speaking up, others sharing their own pain. One message stood out. It read, "Your story gave me courage to tell mine." "Thank you," Lena cried when she read it. For the first time in a long while, her pain felt like it had a purpose. A few weeks later, as she was pushing Noah's stroller through the park, she saw Ethan from a distance. He was standing near a bench wearing sunglasses, talking on the phone. Her stomach twisted, but she didn't turn away. She walked calmly past him. For a brief moment, their eyes met. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just looked at her quietly before looking down again. It was the first time she'd seen him since the court hearing. And in that moment, she realized something surprising. She didn't feel anger anymore. Not really, just sadness. Sadness for what could have been, for the man who chose lies over love. That night, she tucked Noah into bed and stood by the window watching the moonlight spill across the floor. She thought about everything that had happened, the denial, the court, the proof. She whispered to herself, "You made it, little one." We made it. Months passed. Slowly, the town's gossip faded. People found new stories to talk about, new scandals to spread. Life went on. Lena started volunteering at a local shelter, helping other single mothers. She met women who reminded her of herself. Scared, doubted, but still standing. She listened to their stories and offered quiet advice. Don't give up on yourself, she'd tell them. The truth has a way of finding its voice. It wasn't long before a small organization invited her to speak at an event about resilience and truth. She hesitated at first, afraid of standing in front of a crowd. But then she thought about everything she had overcome. She agreed. The night of the event, she stood on stage, her hands trembling slightly. The audience was small but warm, listening closely as she shared her story. When everyone called me crazy, she said, I almost started to believe them. But then I felt my baby move and I realized the truth doesn't need permission to exist. It's just there, waiting to be seen. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment, then filled with gentle applause. Some people even wiped away tears. Afterward, a woman came up to her and said, Your story reminded me that pain can become strength. Thank you. That night, when she returned home, Noah was already asleep. She kissed his forehead and whispered, You're my strength. As she sat by the window again, she opened her laptop and began writing, not just about what happened, but about what she learned, about hope, courage, and truth. Her story wasn't just about proving a man wrong anymore. It was about proving herself right, and for the first time since everything began, she felt free. The sun was just beginning to rise when Lena woke to the soft sounds of her son stirring in his crib. The golden light filled the room, warm and quiet. For a moment, she just stood there watching him sleep. His little hands were curled near his face, peaceful and safe. It had been almost a year since everything happened. The court, the DNA test, the public apology that never really came. The chaos had faded, replaced by a calm she once thought she'd never feel again. Life had found a new rhythm. Each day began the same way, a bottle warming on the counter, a quiet hum from the radio and soft laughter as Noah reached for her hair. Those tiny, ordinary moments had become her favorite part of life. There were still hard days, of course. Days when the bills piled up, or when loneliness crept in like an unwelcome guest. But even on those days when she looked at Noah's bright eyes, she remembered why she'd fought so hard. He was the truth that no one could erase. One afternoon, she was walking home from the park when an older woman stopped her near the gate. You're the young mother from the article, aren't you? The woman asked with a kind smile. Lena nodded shyly. Yes, that's me. The woman smiled. You're strong, dear. What you did took courage. You helped more people than you realize. The words caught Lena off guard. She thanked her, but her voice came out soft, uncertain. She wasn't used to praise. For so long, people had only judged her. But now every kind word felt like a piece of healing. Slow, steady, and real. Later that week, she was invited again to speak at a small community event. This time it wasn't about her past, but about resilience. She almost said no. Public speaking still made her nervous. But then she thought about the women she had met, the ones who said her story gave them courage. And she said yes. When she stood before the crowd, she didn't read from notes. She just spoke from her heart. I used to think that proving the truth would fix everything, she said, but I learned something else. That peace doesn't come from being right. It comes from letting go of what hurt you and choosing to move forward. People listened quietly, some nodding, some wiping their eyes. After the event, a young woman came up to her and whispered, I'm going through something similar. I didn't think I could make it. Until I heard you. Lena smiled and held her hand. You're stronger than you think, she said softly. It was in that moment that she realized her pain had found purpose. Months passed and life kept unfolding gently. Noah learned to crawl, then to walk, his laughter filling every corner of their small home. Lena started taking photography classes online. She loved capturing moments, the glow of morning light, the innocence in Noah's smile, the quiet beauty of ordinary days. One evening, as she sat editing a photo on her laptop, a message appeared in her inbox. It was from Ethan. Her heart skipped. She hadn't heard from him in almost a year. The message was short. I saw your interview. You look happy. I hope you and the baby are doing well. She stared at the screen for a long time. There was no anger in her anymore, just a strange, calm understanding. She typed a reply, then paused. For a moment, she wondered what good it would do to answer. Then she deleted the draft and closed the laptop. Some things didn't need a reply. That night, she rocked Noah to sleep and whispered, "We don't need to look back anymore." From then on, she focused only on the present, on the laughter that filled her small apartment, on the smell of freshly baked bread from the neighbor's window, on the sound of rain against the roof. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and for the first time, that was enough. A year later, Lena's photography caught the attention of a local art gallery. They invited her to display a small collection, simple photos of everyday life. She almost said no, afraid that no one would care about her pictures. But her friend Maya insisted. "People need to see what you see," Maya said. "Your photos have heart." At the opening, the gallery was quiet and bright. Her photos hung neatly along the wall, a baby's hand gripping a finger, sunlight over old rooftops, rain sliding down a window pane. As people walked through, she stood quietly in a corner holding Noah in her arms. A woman stopped in front of one photo, a black and white image of a crib by the window, and said softly, "It feels peaceful." Lena smiled. That's what I wanted. When the night ended, she stepped outside into the cool air. The streetlights shimmered on wet pavement and the city hummed gently around her. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you." She wasn't sure who she was thanking, life, fate, maybe even herself. She thought back to the first time she had held her phone, waiting for a reply that never came. How small and scared she'd felt then, how everyone said she was crazy, how she had almost believed them. But now, standing there with her son's head resting against her shoulder, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. She had survived. She had grown. She had turned pain into strength. Weeks later, she took Noah to the countryside to visit her parents. The fields were green and open, the air fresh. Her mother hugged her tightly, tears in her eyes. "You did it, sweetheart," she whispered. "You really did." Lena smiled through her tears. "We did." That evening, as the sun set behind the trees, she sat outside with her father. He didn't say much, just looked at her quietly, the way fathers do when they don't have words big enough for their feelings. "I'm proud of you," he finally said. Those words stayed with her long after the night ended. Back home, when she put Noah to bed, she noticed her old phone on the dresser, the same one that once held every message, every memory, every heartbreak. It was cracked, old, but still worked. She turned it on one last time. The screen flickered, showing nothing but empty space. The chats were gone. The photos had been backed up elsewhere. It felt strange and like looking at an old ghost that no longer had power over her. She smiled softly, then powered it off for good. The next morning, she woke early and took Noah to the park. The world was quiet, filled with birdsong and the smell of fresh grass. She pushed the stroller along the path, the sun warm on her skin. At one point, Noah reached out his small hand toward the sky, giggling. Lena laughed too, and for a moment everything felt exactly right. No more courts, no more headlines, no more pain, just life. Honest, ordinary, and full of hope. As they sat under the shade of a tree, she took out her camera and snapped a picture, the two of them together, smiling, with sunlight all around. When she looked at the image on the screen, she whispered to herself, "This is our new beginning." And for the first time since the story began, she didn't need anyone to text her back, because now she had everything she ever needed: truth, peace, and a love that would never leave her. The years passed gently, the way time does when you stop chasing what's gone and start building what's yours. Noah was 4 now, bright, curious, full of endless questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? Where does rain sleep? Do clouds have names? Every answer made him giggle, and every giggle made Lena's world feel bigger and brighter. Their apartment was still small, but filled with warmth, toys on the floor, photos on the walls, plants growing in the sunlight. It wasn't perfect, but it was home. Lena's photography had quietly grown from a hobby into something more. A local newspaper had started using her pictures for their weekend features, and people loved the way she captured everyday life. Not fancy things, just truth. One morning, she woke up to an email from a small publisher. They wanted to make a photo book of her work, with short stories and quotes alongside the images. The editor said her photos made people feel. She stared at the email, hardly believing it. The girl who had once been called crazy was now being called inspiring. But fame wasn't what she wanted. What mattered to her was that the story she once hid from had turned into something that gave others courage. When she told her parents, her mother cried. Her father, always quiet, simply said, "I knew you'd find your way." Noah clapped his little hands and said, "Mommy, you're going to be in a book." Lena laughed and hugged him tight. "We're in it together, little one." As the book took shape, she decided to write a short note at the beginning, something she wished someone had told her when the world turned against her. It read, "Truth doesn't shout. It waits. Sometimes the world won't believe you right away, but that doesn't make your story less real. Hold on. The truth always finds its light." When the book finally came out, it didn't go viral or make her famous, but it reached the people who needed it most. Messages started arriving again, not from strangers full of judgment, but from hearts full of understanding. One message stood out. "I was afraid to stand up for myself. After reading your story, I did. Thank you." Lena saved that message in a small notebook, her good things journal. Every time doubt crept in, she'd open it and read those words. As Noah grew, he started asking gentle questions about his father. "Mommy, where is he?" Lena always answered with honesty, but also with kindness. "He lives far away, sweetheart." "But you know what? You have so many people who love you right here." That answer always seemed enough for him. He'd smile, nod, and move on to talking about dinosaurs or spaceships. Still, sometimes late at night, when the house was quiet, Lena wondered what Ethan thought now. Did he ever think about the child he once denied? Did he regret the silence? But she never let those thoughts linger too long. Life was too precious to waste on what-ifs. Eventually, Claire stood up. "I should go. Lily will wake up early and you'll need all the sleep you can get." Emily laughed softly. "You're not wrong about that." After Claire left, Emily went back to Lily's crib and watched her sleep. Her tiny chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. "You changed everything," Emily whispered again. "You gave me a reason to start over." She turned off the lamp, leaving only the soft glow from the window. The world outside was still full of noise and chaos, but inside this little apartment, there was peace. And that was enough. Months later, Emily received an envelope in the mail from social services. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a letter confirming the adoption had been finalized. Lily was now officially her daughter. Tears filled her eyes as she read the words over and over again. She sat down on the couch, clutching the paper to her chest, and laughed through the tears. She texted Claire immediately. "Emily, it's official. She's mine." Claire, "No, she's ours." Emily smiled, her heart full. That night, as she tucked Lily into bed, she whispered softly, "Welcome home, my little miracle." The baby stirred, tiny fingers brushing against Emily's hand. Outside, the city lights shimmered, and a faint wind carried the scent of rain, the same kind of rain that had once changed everything. But now there was no sadness in it. Just memory, just grace. Emily stood by the window, looking out into the night. Somewhere deep inside, she knew she had finally found what she'd been searching for all along. Not just family, but belonging. And maybe, just maybe, that broken girl who once walked through the rain had never really been lost at all. She had simply been on her way home. Months passed quietly, the kind of peace that felt almost fragile. Emily's days were full of routines now. Breakfast with Lily, work at the diner, afternoons in the park, and evenings with Claire. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. And for Emily, good was more than enough. Lily was almost 2 years old. She was learning to walk, to talk, and to make messes faster than Emily could clean them. Every mama and every tiny laugh made Emily's heart stretch a little wider. Claire had found a job at a local store and was doing better than ever. She came by often, sometimes staying the night, sometimes bringing little surprises for Lily. Together, the three of them were slowly building the kind of family Emily had always dreamed of, steady, kind, and real. But one afternoon, everything shifted again. It started with a letter. Emily found it in her mailbox, buried under bills and flyers. It was addressed to her in neat handwriting she didn't recognize. There was no return address. She sat on the couch, Lily playing beside her, and opened it carefully. "Dear Emily, I don't know how to begin this. My name is Helen. I believe I am your grandmother." Emily's hands froze. Her breath caught. She read the line again, then again as if the words might change. "I have been searching for you for a long time. I only recently learned about your mother's passing. I didn't know she had another daughter. I am sorry for everything that was kept from you. If you are willing, I would like to meet you. There was a phone number at the bottom. For a long time, Emily didn't move. The world seemed to quiet around her, even Lily's giggles fading into the background. A grandmother? After all these years? That night, she told Claire. They sat at the small kitchen table after Lily had gone to sleep, the letter lying between them like something alive. Claire stared at it for a long time. She found you? She whispered. Emily nodded slowly. I didn't even know she existed. Claire's brow furrowed. Mom never talked about her, not once. She said she grew up in foster care too. Maybe she lied, Emily said softly. Or maybe she just wanted to forget. Claire leaned back in her chair. Do you want to meet her? I don't know, Emily admitted. Part of me wants to, but part of me is scared. What if she's just another person who disappears? Claire reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You won't know unless you try. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about all the years she'd spent wondering where she came from, who she belonged to. And now maybe there was someone who had those answers. The next morning, she dialed the number. Her hands trembled as the phone rang. Hello? The voice on the other end was soft, shaky with age. Hi, Emily said quietly. This is Emily Carter. I got your letter. There was a long pause, then a sound that was half a gasp, half a sob. Oh, sweetheart, the woman whispered. I never thought I'd hear your voice. They talked for nearly an hour. Helen told her about a small town 2 hours away, about how she'd lost contact with Emily's mother when she was young, how she'd tried to find her but never could. She spoke with warmth and sorrow, the kind that came from years of regret. I know I have no right to ask, Helen said. But could I see you? Just once, you and your little girl? Emily hesitated, glancing toward the crib where Lily was sleeping. Maybe, she said softly. I'll think about it. After the call, Emily sat in silence for a long time. The idea of meeting Helen felt heavy, uncertain. But something deep down told her she had to, not just for herself, but for Lily. A week later, Emily and Claire packed a small bag and drove to the address Helen had given. The road wound through quiet countryside, past golden fields and small houses with gardens full of flowers. When they arrived, a woman stood waiting on the porch. Her hair was silver tied neatly back and her hands trembled as she waved. Emily? She called softly. Emily stepped out of the car holding Lily on her hip. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Helen's eyes filled with tears as she came closer. You look just like your mother when she was your age. Emily didn't know what to say, so she didn't say anything at all. She just stood there, unsure whether to run or cry. But then Helen reached out, not forcefully, just a gentle touch on Emily's arm, and something in her face. The raw kindness of it made Emily's walls soften. Come in, sweetheart, Helen said quietly. I made tea. Inside, the house was small but warm. Photographs lined the walls, some old, some new. One picture caught Emily's eye. It was of her mother, younger, smiling beside a woman who had to be Helen. She was beautiful, Emily whispered. She was, Helen said, and stubborn, just like you. They all laughed softly, and for a moment the years between them didn't feel so wide. They spent the afternoon talking. Helen told stories about her childhood, about the family Emily never knew. Cousins, aunts, people who had thought she was lost forever. As the sun dipped low, Helen asked, Can I hold her? Emily hesitated, then nodded. She passed Lily over carefully. Helen's hands trembled as she cradled the little girl. Tears ran down her cheeks. She looks just like her mother, Helen whispered. But she has your eyes. Something broke open inside Emily then, something she hadn't realized she'd still been holding on to. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't floating in the world alone. They stayed until evening. When they finally got back in the car, the sky was streaked with orange and purple. Claire glanced at her. So? Emily smiled faintly. She's real. And she's kind. Claire reached for her hand. You deserve that. Over the next few weeks, they visited often. Helen became part of their small circle, teaching Emily family recipes, sharing old stories, and even knitting tiny sweaters for Lily. But not everything was easy. With each story came memories of their mother, Some beautiful, some painful. Emily sometimes had to step outside, take a breath, remind herself that the past couldn't hurt her anymore. One evening, after Helen had told another story about her daughter's wild teenage years, Emily asked quietly, "Did she ever talk about me?" Helen's eyes softened. "Once," she said. "She told me she had done something she could never forgive herself for." "I think she meant leaving you." Emily's throat tightened. "I used to think I wasn't enough for her to stay." Helen reached across the table and took her hand. "Oh, darling, she didn't leave because of you. She left because she didn't know how to stay. But you broke that cycle." The words hit deep. Emily nodded, blinking back tears. "I hope so." As they drove home that night, Lily slept peacefully in the back seat and Claire hummed softly to herself. "Feels strange, doesn't it?" Claire said, "Having family that actually wants us." Emily smiled faintly. "Yeah, it feels like we're finally rewriting the story." She glanced in the mirror at Lily, her little head tilted against the car seat. "And she'll never have to wonder where she belongs." The road stretched ahead of them, long and quiet. For the first time, Emily didn't feel like she was running from the past. She was walking toward something new. The broken girl who once wandered through the rain had found a baby, a sister, and now a grandmother. And somehow, through it all, she had found herself too.